Hello and welcome to MINYIP. I'm your host, Blake, and I am joined by Clinton. How are you, Clinton?
I'm good, thank you, Blake. It's quick question for you. Do you like the Teskey brothers?
The whom?
The Teskey brothers, the band.
Yeah, love them. Why is that?
Well, Pain and Misery is one of my favourite songs, and all I can say is for the last month, my FPL season has been nothing but pain and misery. But I'm hoping hopefully this is the last week I can talk about being a failure and I can start getting good scores because it's painful and miserable.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can turn around soon, Clinton, because I'm getting quite sick of hearing you like this. So
Fair enough. I'm up and about. I'm ready to go.
I'm not sure whether I prefer it like this or when you're bragging about your team. So
Okay.
I hope that hopefully you'll be able to turn it around soon.
I'm coming back.
Yes. So this is our FPL Game Week 9 preview show. So if you're listening or watching the show today, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you to the people that subscribed last week and also joined our new Patreon. So patreon.com/MINYIP Fantasy Sports Community is our new site where you can support us. So thank you to the people that registered on there. We'll quickly go through last week's results, which is currently not the slide that's up on your screen right now. The results from last week, game week 8, Watford got smacked by Liverpool 5-0, Aston Villa 2-3 Wolves, Leicester 4-2 Man United, Man City 2-0 Burnley, Norwich had a draw versus Brighton, Southampton 1-0 Leeds, Brentford 0-1 Chelsea, Everton 0-1 West Ham, Newcastle 2-3 Spurs, and Arsenal had a draw versus Crystal Palace 2-2. What did you make of those fixtures last week, Clinton?
Yeah, it's good to see a lot of goals flying in. Obviously, a bit of a contrast there, but yeah, some interesting results. I think United are the ones that are starting to really waver and under a lot of pressure. Arsenal, watching that game, were very disappointing at home to Crystal Palace. That's dropped points for them. Brentford, although losing to Chelsea, I think they've been pretty impressive this year. So Tony and Raya even in goal. Yeah, they've got some good fantasy options. So yeah, good weekend. Hopefully to see some high scoring this week.
Yeah, Liverpool, probably the most informed team in the whole comp at the moment, which I predicted correctly, a 5-0 win. And we both predicted that Southampton would defeat Leeds by 1 goal. So 1-0 there. So I got a couple right last weekend, which is probably the first time that's happened. Got the correct score. And you're right, yeah, the Man United defenders are very shaky at the back there. They're leaking goals. So hopefully they can turn it around soon. And Wolves got a good win against Aston Villa. How do you think people will be jumping on Wolves at the moment, Clinton?
Well, they're a bit hard to predict. I think they had a bit of a flat patch to start the year, but yeah, they've been pretty impressive recently, and everyone was jumping on their defenders there a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, looking potent up front again. So personally, I'm not looking at them, but I understand why people are looking at a few options.
Yeah, so the top scorers last week from game week 8, Firmino scored a hat-trick and got 20 fantasy points. He's in 3% of teams. Chilwell, 15 points. Ogbono, 15. McGinn got 13. And Salah, who was on fire, also got 13, with him being in 64% of teams now, Clinton. What are your thoughts on Salah?
He's a pretty good player. He's no doubt no longer in the conversation, but I think he's almost cemented himself as the best player in the world at the moment. So it'd be pretty silly not to have him in your fantasy team. And yeah, Chilwell was actually quite a few people I saw took a risk on him on wildcard and brought him in and paid dividends straight away with 15 points. So it was a risky pick. Who knows who will start, whether it be him or Alonso. But for those who brought him in, well done. And yeah, a few other lowly owned players. And Firmino, I was obviously a Jota owner, and Firmino, yeah, obviously decided to turn it on. So we'll see what happens week on week. Who's going to be playing up front for Liverpool?
Yeah, he got a few good passes there, and he had a stellar game. So we'll go across to the low score. So the highly owned players, your trident of forwards there, Clinton. Antonio 1 point, Ronaldo 2, Lukaku 2, Diaz which his ownership's gone up into 29% of teams now. He scored 1, and Shaw got 0 points, who was in 25% of teams. So some highly owned forwards and defenders there. Antonio's one of the highest owned players in the game, 45% of teams, and priced at 8.1. And he's got some tough fixtures coming up as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if a few managers started jumping off Antonio. But yeah, how many did you have this week, Clinton? Did you have the hat trick of having all 5, or how many did you have?
Well, I got rid of Shaw, thankfully. But yeah, obviously Diaz was disappointed that he didn't start remarkably, but obviously that was just a rest. So I'm hoping he plays every week from now on. And I proclaimed them as the Holy Trinity about a month ago, and they've been nothing but, I wouldn't say defeat, but they've been really disappointing for me in the last month, which is the reason why I've scored very low scores. So yes, Ronaldo especially, I was banking on him turning it around, and yeah, it hasn't happened. So Lukaku's got the fixtures, but obviously there's news now that he's injured, and Antonio, I'm hoping, can turn his form around.
Yeah, it's a lot of funds to spend if they're not performing. Ronaldo, 12.5 price, and Lukaku, who is, as you mentioned, injured now, 11.7. We'll touch on Lukaku's injury a bit later when we're previewing our teams for this weekend and the fixtures coming up. So last weekend I scored 65 points. My ranking went up slightly. So I'm just over 1 million now. Sanchez scored 6, Livramento 6, Cancelo 6, and White got me 1. Benrahma 3, Havertz 1, Bernardo da Silva 11, Salah 26, Lukaku 2, St. Maximum 2, and Antonio 1. So the transfers I made last week, I brought in Cancelo, who got me 6, and I also moved Sarr on and got Bernardo da Silva in, who scored me 11, taking a -4 hit, but it paid off for me quite well. I just wanted that Man City midfielder, and he was the best one that I could afford. He's been playing a lot of minutes, and I thought he was due for a big game. So he scored me a +7 by copping that hit. If I didn't get him, I would have had Semedo on the field, who only scored 1 on my bench. Backman didn't play as my backup goalkeeper. Rudiger didn't play due to injury, so I needed cover for him. And Dallas scored 2 on my bench as well. So pretty happy with my team overall. Obviously, Salah as captain, getting me the 26 points. He had an amazing assist about 11 minutes into the game, and then scored an equally as good goal later on in the game. So I'm guessing a lot of managers would have owned him, obviously, and captained him. So 26 points there. My defenders held up quite well. Havertz, who didn't play many minutes again, which is very disappointing, but I'm guessing a lot of teams will be jumping on him now that Chelsea's got a few injuries. So hopefully he'll get a lot more minutes this weekend. Overall, pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I think Havertz has been an amazing hold. I think you've been trying to get rid of him for a month, but now all of a sudden, I think, yeah, it's going to be, as I said, an amazing hold, because I think everyone will be jumping on board him. And yeah, I think Bernardo was a very risky selection. He could be rested for several games on end. You just never know what Pep will do, but you've done well to get his points. And yeah, obviously didn't score much up front, but with depending on Lukaku's injury status, that opens some doors for you up front. And yeah, Rudiger should be back, so your team's looking very solid, Blake. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I was quite happy with that overall. You scored 35 points last weekend, Clinton. Do you want to talk through how that eventuated?
Raya scored me 2 in goal. Yeah, as I said, Diaz was benched, but he came on for 1. And at least he got 1 because my bench didn't score much either. So wouldn't have made a big difference if he stayed off the whole game. Livramento 6, Cancelo 6, and Trent got me 6. Benrahma 3, Gallagher 2, and Mbeumo got me 2. He actually hit the post a couple of times. He's looking good, but not quite converting. Ronaldo I decided to captain, and he only scored 2. Lukaku 2 and Antonio 1. And as I said, my bench was pretty dismal as well. So really good bit of play. Jota, he didn't come on either. Sissoko 2, and my backup goalie Steer didn't play. So I took a -4 last week. I decided to take out Shaw and Greenwood, who scored for Man U, but I brought in Trent for 6 and Buemo for 2, and I'm happy with those 2 players going forward. So I'm not disappointed with those transfers. It just didn't quite go my way. And yeah, obviously, big gaping hole in the midfield, which I need to fix up. And yeah, obviously, it's been disappointing with my 3 forwards. So hopefully, I can turn it around.
Yeah, hopefully your defenders are holding strong for you back there, and I reckon they'll still continue to do that. It's good you've got Alexander-Arnold back in now after his short injury, so you've got a leg on most managers there. Scott is still leading our league. Well done, Scott, on 553 points, and he scored quite well last week again, so he's still on top. Paul has moved up the rankings into second. Andrew had a good round and scored 60 points. He's moved up to third. Dem dropped down a couple. He scored 46 points. He's fourth now. And Brent is still in fifth. Our highest scorer for the week was Dylan, scoring a massive 81 points. And looking at his team, it was like nothing I've seen this round at all. He had Firmino as the captain, so there's 40 points just there. There's half his points just about. Had Vardy. He was actually a man down on the pitch. He had a donut on there. So a man down, still scoring 81. Very impressive effort there, Dylan. So yeah, couldn't believe.
As I said before we started recording, like sometimes players they set their teams up at the start of the year and don't change, and weeks like this they could score 81 and be quite impressive, and then next week they could score 15. Is what it is, but unless he's a genius, and he did captain Firmino, so well done with the score anyway.
Yeah, with the team name Chips and Gravy, hopefully you can keep it up there, Dylan. It's quite a close league we've got going here, Clinton. Between 3rd to 7th, there's only 5 points separating them, so still a lot of opportunity there for managers to make their way up to the rankings in our league. Still a lot of FPL to be played out yet. I don't know what's going on with our slide changes this evening if you're watching on YouTube, so bear with me for 2 seconds. The transfers this week so far, the most transferred in player is Jamie Vardy, who has not stopped all season, just scoring goals. He's been transferred in by 427,000 managers. Chilwell's second most, 200,000. Townsend still being transferred in for Everton, 188,000. Salah's still being transferred in as well. He's gone up another 3% in ownership, 161,000. Aspilicueta, 148,000. So some Chelsea defenders there being transferred in. But Rudiger's the 4th most transferred out as from 161,000. Alonso, the 3rd most transferred out, 234,000. Lukaku's already been transferred out by 277,000. But Ronaldo is the most transferred out player for the 2nd week in a row, 458,000. And Jota's the 5th most transferred out, 153,000. The top 2 most transferred out players hasn't changed from last week, Clinton. People are transferring out to your highly owned, highly expensive forwards.
I think it's interesting, or it's worth noting, Blake, we're recording this Thursday night, and we only, obviously, this morning heard the news about, or saw that Lukaku got injured. So those numbers will be quite different in the next 24 hours. And it's worth noting that the deadline for this game week is a lot earlier. So it's actually Saturday morning. The first game starts at 6 a.m. Australian Eastern Time. So I think all depends on the next 24 hours what the news comes through about Lukaku. There's potential that he could play, but at this stage it's looking likely he'll be out for at least 1 week. So I wouldn't be surprised if it is announced that he's out injured for a while. He'll be transferred out by a lot of people, and Jamie Vardy will be transferred in by a lot of people. So that'll be the transfer which you'll see a lot of, and it makes sense. Vardy was a good pick at the start of the year for you, Blake. He's Obviously, just looking after himself. There's no other. Obviously, they're in Europa League, but he's just looking after himself, just playing in the Premier League and up front. Leicester have had a bit of a mixed bag of form, but he's still obviously there and dangerous around goal. So he's getting plenty of opportunities. And yeah, Chilwell, understandably, after coming in, potentially is starting to look more locked into the team. He's looking solid as well. So it's all justifiable so far, but I think there'll be a lot of changes in the next 24 hours depending on the Lukaku news.
It looks like a lot of managers are sideways swapping the Chelsea defenders. What do you make of that?
I understand it, but once again, it's risky. It all depends. So obviously, I think Chilwell played about 60 to 70 minutes this morning. So that could potentially mean that Alonso starts this game week. So I'm still avoiding the two of them, Alonso and Chilwell, because obviously I think they're sharing that position. So it's a risky play, but people do point chase, and sometimes that pays off because they do stay in the team. So yeah, and Azpilicueta is probably a more nailed on option, but the whole Chelsea defense, that there's not many injuries now. Obviously, Rudiger is back after that short injury. So the rotation risk is there. So it's a risky play, and that's why I've chosen to get Rudiger, because once he's nailed, he's pretty much not going anywhere. So interesting.
Yeah, the reason why managers are still jumping on Chelsea assets is because their fixtures are still so good. They got Norwich, Newcastle, Burnley, and Leicester over the next 4 game weeks. And even Man United is in game week 13. Man United is still leaking a lot of goals. So that's still probably not even a difficult fixture for them, being how good they are up front, Chelsea. So Brentford, according to the difficulty rating that I was looking up, had Brentford's got the best fixtures coming up over the next 5 game weeks. They've got Leicester, Burnley, Norwich, Newcastle, and Everton. So almost flipped around from Chelsea's. But yeah, they've got the best fixtures coming up. Leeds have the 3rd best. Norwich have some good fixtures after they play Chelsea this week. So potentially,
I wouldn't buy Norwich. I wouldn't get Norwich players, but yes.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't either, but that's where they're sitting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be getting Burnley either, and they're 5th. So yeah, they're the sort of the top 5 teams with the best fixtures. Some teams with some more difficult fixtures coming up. Man United, who have got Liverpool, Tottenham, and Man City the next 3, and then Chelsea 5 weeks away. West Ham's got some tough fixtures as well. They've got Tottenham, Liverpool, Man City. Watford's got Everton, Arsenal, and Man United. And Tottenham's got West Ham, Man United, Everton over their next 3. So that's some teams with some difficult fixtures coming up. I'm personally looking at the next 3 block before my wild card. And then after that, I'll be looking at players who will have good fixtures coming out of that wild card. So over the next 3, just looking at this spreadsheet here, I'm looking at Leicester, who've got Brentford, Arsenal, and Leeds. It's got some good fixtures there over the next 3. Even Everton's got Watford, Wolves, and Tottenham. So that's the way I'm sort of looking at the fixtures going forward at the moment. Clinton, how much of a difference does the fixtures play in your team management?
Quite a bit. I think there's some managers that focus more on fixtures than form. So that's why we've discussed Chelsea was such a team that everyone wanted to bring in players around game week 7. And yeah, I think looking at the fixtures at the start of the year, I think everyone knew that Man United had tougher fixtures around now. So, which is why the smart managers were a bit reluctant to bring in Ronaldo, and I think it's paid dividends that they didn't, because they're heading they've been in poor form, and now they're in this tough patch of fixtures. West Ham as well. I think at the start of the season they had some good fixtures, and everyone was buying their players, but now all of a sudden, potentially the likes of who I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about Antonio Benrahma, even a defender. There's a lot of people who had a lot of West Ham players. So fixtures always play a big part. So yeah, you mentioned Brentford. Ivan Toney's a player that you didn't mention on the transfers in list, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's a player that scores a lot of points over the next 3 weeks, or 3 to 4 even, because they play Leicester, which is pretty tough this week. Then they play Burnley, Norwich, and then Newcastle, and they're 3 of the best fixtures right there. So I expect Brentford to score some points.
Yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on Tony. He's on both of our watch lists currently. We've already mentioned Leicester, so we're both watching Vardy, but I anticipate he'll be coming into our team soon. You're watching Inacho as well, Clinton?
Yeah, he's a player I'm definitely considering. So Leicester have actually changed their setup since the start of the year. They were playing more with Barnes and just Vardy at top, and now they've sort of flipped it around, and Iheanacho and Vardy have been playing up front the last couple of weeks. And like last year, once he got cemented in the team, he was just scoring goals week in, week out. So he's a player that I'm really tempted by at his price. And then through the midfield, I'm still sort of keeping an eye on the likes of Mount. Havertz is now quite appealing, who you have, so well done. And I'm still keeping an eye on the Man City boys and Foden and Kevin De Bruyne. And then obviously, I think after missing last week, Rafinha is, I think, really appealing in his next couple of fixtures.
Yeah, Leeds has some good fixtures coming up. He's so Rafinha's both on both our watch lists. Son, who remarkably played last week after testing positive for COVID at the start of the week, then tested negative a few days later. So he ended up playing and scoring quite well. So Son's on our.
Sorry, I was even tired. Like he tested positive. I think it was like 36 hours before. So everyone transferred him out, and then literally rock up to game day and he's playing. So all those people, there was people who transferred him in, and then with the COVID result, then transferred him out, and then he played and scored. So imagine how filthy you'd be with that.
Yeah, that would have been a kick in the gonads if you did that. I'm watching Bruno Fernandez for when his fixtures open back up again, and Buemo, which you already mentioned and is in your team. I've got him on my watch list just because of Brentford's good fixtures. And I transferred out Sarr last week because of their tougher run of fixtures coming up. So after his fixtures open back up again, I might be interested in getting him back in. But you're looking at some Chelsea defenders again, Clinton. So Azpilicueta and Chilwell, and also Reece James.
I'm quite content right now with my back five. I don't see myself changing much. So these are just literally in case of injury. But yeah, I'm still. If I would make a change, it would be for another Chelsea defender. And I've also got Cash in there as someone I'm keeping an eye on. Also for Brighton, he's worth $5 million. Cucurella, his name is. He's only been playing recently, and he's fit in really well for Brighton's defense. So I think he's a player that's worth watching. And yeah, I'm unlikely to make any goalkeeper transfers as well. So Mendy and Edison are always on my watch list, but unlikely to move on Raya.
Yeah, 6.1 is a lot to spend on a goalkeeper, but Mendy was unbelievable last week with some of the saves that he was making. I really do want Trent Alexander-Arnold back into my team shortly, so I'm pretty sure he'll be coming back into my team come wildcard time. But an interesting one for my goalkeepers this week. I'm almost tempted to bring in McCarthy. He's got good fixtures over the next three, and Sanchez has got Man City this week and then another tough fixture after that. So I'm tempted to bring in a backup keeper, and I'll discuss that when it comes to my team. And yeah, that just about covers us for our watch list. Some other players I'm watching are Diaz, Duffy, and Harry Kane, who returned with some points last week. You still got Salah just sitting there, Clinton?
Yeah, just watching him. He's a pretty handy player, so he's on my watch list. Just see if you can find some form. So
yeah, that'll be good. Keep watching that. We've got Arsenal, Aston Villa this week, Chelsea, Norwich, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Everton, Watford, Leeds, Wolves, Southampton, Burnley, Brighton versus Man City, as I just mentioned. Brentford have Leicester, which will be a good game this weekend. West Ham versus Spurs, and Man United versus Liverpool. Some good games there, Clinton. It was quite tough to predict the scoreline for this week, but you've got Chelsea having convincing win versus Norwich.
Well, yeah, obviously, despite the injury news, I still think they'll try and score some goals. I think that's what they're lacking a bit recently. They're defending quite well, but it's going to be interesting how they shape up. But I think they need to start looking more potent up front. I sort of do think Mount will be the player to help them with that. Liverpool, Man United will be an interesting game. As of this morning, the Champions League, United were 2-0 down at halftime and managed to come back and win with Ronaldo scoring the winner. So perhaps I'll get some momentum from that. So that should be a good game to watch as well.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm with you there with Chelsea. I've got them winning 5-0. We've both got Man City having convincing win versus Brighton. So hopefully we'll have some high-scoring games there, and look forward to watching some of those fixtures across the weekend. That'll be good, and we can chat about that. My team for this weekend, I haven't made any transfers yet, which is lucky because I do have Lukaku sitting there. I will be playing Havertz on the field. So I'll quickly run through my team. I do have Sanchez in goal currently as my man against Man City. I've got on the pitch Livramento, Cancelo, Ben White, and Rudiger, who, as you mentioned earlier, has made a return in the Champions League. So I predict he will be playing this weekend. Havertz, Bernardo Silva, Salah, Lukaku, who will be transferred out. St. Maximum and Antonio make up my starting lineup. On my bench, I've got Backman, Semedo, Ben Rama, and Dallas. I think Ben Rama's probably got the toughest fixture out of any of my starters, so he's on the bench currently, but could very well put him on the pitch. Currently, my thoughts of transfers, I think I'll do Lukaku to Vardy. Vardy's just still in form, got good fixtures coming up and over the next 3 game weeks, and that'll give me 0.9 value to spend elsewhere. And currently, I'm very tempted to take a -4 hit, changing Backman to a keeper who has a good fixture, possibly McCarthy. So that's my current plan for this weekend. When I do bring in Vardy, I'll probably put the captaincy on him. Some other options will be Mo Salah, obviously, and potentially even Havertz, even though he's played limited minutes over the last few weeks. I might even captain him because I think someone's going to score the goals for Chelsea, and I'm hoping it'll be him. What do you think of my...
I'm not a big fan of the
-4.
I'm not a big fan of that. Sanchez has done... If you had it set at the start of the year how he's gone, I think you'd be pretty happy with him. So I would personally just stick with him until your wild card and don't worry about a backup goalkeeper. That's just me. And the other thing is, my question would be, what if Lukaku gets announced as fit in the next 24 hours? What would you do then?
It's a very good question. I was potentially not going to transfer at all this weekend because I currently have no reserve value on my bench. I'm in reserve. So I probably wasn't going to make any transfers and keep one up my sleeve. So I'll wait to see until tomorrow night before I go to bed. And then if there's no update on Lukaku playing, I will be making those transfers.
It's a tricky one because at home to Norwich is the best fixture you can get. So I think you'd regret it if you did transfer him out for Vardy, then somehow Lukaku played. So that's the thing that you want to try to avoid. So it's worthwhile trying to monitor what is happening. But I do understand the appeal of Vardy. Just make sure Lukaku is officially ruled out before you do that, I suggest. But otherwise, understandable move for that one. Yeah, and as I said, I'm not sure about the goalkeeper move, but you play your game.
It worked all right for me last week, so we'll see how we go. What are your thoughts on captaining Havertz?
I think it's a very bold move considering the best player in the world you have. And even though he's playing away to Manchester United, there's a lot of people now just going to stick the captaincy on him. So it would be a risky move to have it on Havertz, but I can't see him not starting, depending on Lukaku, obviously. But it is a bold... I'd say it's a bold move and it could pay off handsomely. So, play your way, Blake. But I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll be posting our teams on our social media platforms once we have made our transfers. So that'll be on our Instagram and Twitter feeds. So check us out on there to see that we do confirm those trades. Your team, Clinton, you made any transfers yet?
I haven't made any transfers yet. I'll quickly run through it. Raya in goal, Diaz, Rudiger, Cancelo, Trent, Jota, Gallagher, and Buemo, Ronaldo, Lukaku, and Antonio's on field. So at the moment, what I'm thinking about is I had in my mind already what I was going to do, and it was risky. So at this stage, as I said, I'll wait until hit the Lukaku news. If he's only out for 1 week, I'll still keep him because I have Livramento on my bench along with Benrahma and Sissoko. So I'm quite happy to start probably Livramento. So I think if Lukaku's out for 1 week, or if it's not clear that he's out for a long time, I'll keep him. So my planned moves, I'm taking out Jota and Ronaldo, and I was planning on bringing in. You'd be surprised it's not Salah, because I could bring in Salah. I'm bringing KDB because I do think he's now in really good form, and that Man City are just ticking along nicely. And I think over the next couple of weeks, I think he'll score more than Salah. Now that's a bold thing to say, but I'm really liking him at the moment, and that's. I've got to go a bit. I've already gone rogue this year in the last month, and it'd be easy just to bring in Salah, but ultimately then I'm 2 million rankings behind people that I'm trying to catch, and I'll have the same team. So I'm going to have KDB, and then up front instead of Ronaldo for the price I can buy. As I mentioned, I really like Iheanacho. The only issue with that now is, as I said, he's been playing up front for Leicester with Vardy. He's a really good price and all that. But this morning in the Europa League, I think it was, but they won a game, I think it was 4-3, and the other forward, his name is Daka, I think it's Daka. He scored 4 goals. Iheanacho played and assisted twice, but this other guy kicked 4 goals and apparently played unbelievable. So I think that could jeopardise Iheanacho a little bit, but I'm still tempted to go ahead with it. So that's what I'm weighing up now, because I was all set for Iheanacho at his price because he did it last year and scored really well when he was playing. So I'm still tempted to go ahead with that move. But once again, with Lukaku news, a lot's still in the air. But at this stage, I'm still leaning towards getting KDB and Iheanacho for Jota and Ronaldo.
Can you do Lukaku and Jota and do those same transfers? Have you got enough cash for
that? Yes, I think so. Yes.
Okay.
So I could keep Ronaldo, and yeah, as I said, if Lukaku's out for maybe 2 or more weeks, if that becomes clear, I'll do that instead. I'll keep Ronaldo. And if that, as I said, with KDB, I'm also going to put the captaincy on him because I don't have Salah. So that's the risky move I'm making. A lot of people don't have KDB. This time last year, everyone was saying KDB is the best player in the world. So, ownership-wise, I think I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it's less than 5%. So it'd be a really big differential move. And if he somehow scored a brace or a hat-trick even, and Salah had a tough game versus Manchester United, which is possible, that could be a really bold, good move, or could backfire, but that's the way I'm heading at this stage.
Yeah, 3.3% ownership for KDB there, Clinton.
So there's my big bold move for this week. I've as I said, the easy thing for me to do at this stage is just to bring in Salah. It makes sense, and it's it's just putting my pride away and not being stubborn. But
just going to keep being stubborn.
Well, as I said, it's purely because the next couple of weeks of fixtures. I really like Man City's fixtures, so if it doesn't pay off, then I can move KDB to Salah. But this is what I've decided. Yeah, Iheanacho is the one which is the tricky one now because I do like him, but this morning might have threw me off a little bit, but we'll see.
Is there any other forwards that you're potentially eyeing off to transfer in instead?
I haven't done a deep search, but I really like Iheanacho. I've sort of set my mind on that one, but
yeah, the
rest of my team for this week, I'm happy. I'm happy with my 4 defenders. I'm happy Gallagher's at home to Newcastle, and Buemo, so he's actually against Leicester, but they're looking really dangerous up front, and Leicester aren't looking good in their defense. So I'm really happy with the overall team. Obviously, just sorting out the whole Ronaldo, Jota, Lukaku moves.
Yeah, so hopefully Man City can dominate, as we mentioned in our fixture prediction. So that'll just about wrap up our show for this evening, Clinton. As you already mentioned in the show, it is recorded on a Thursday night in Australia. So hopefully there's not too many curveballs that'll come our way before 4:30 a.m. Before the lockout. So
West Ham play tomorrow morning. So we both, I think, have Antonio and Ben Rama. So there could be another curveball there. But the injury updates are going to be pivotal for this game week.
Oh, absolutely. If you are following us in our other games, Supercoach Racing will be recorded tomorrow night. So stay tuned for that one. And yeah, we're just playing across a wide variety of formats at the moment. With NBA's just kicked off this week, so we're playing the sports deck version of that game. So if you're interested in joining us in any other games and leagues, make sure you follow us on our socials. So that's the best way to stay tuned, and subscribe to patreon.com/MINYIP Fantasy Sports Community, so you can chat with other members of our community about your teams and stay involved in the community of our fantasy sports. So yeah, that'll just about wrap us up, Clinton. Hope you have a good game week 9. Hopefully you can bounce back. It's been a tough 4 or 5 weeks for you. The roller coaster sort of broke a bit. It just went downhill instead of going back up. But yeah, hopefully this week you can turn it around, and we'll keep you updated on the socials regarding our teams and transfer news. So hope you enjoy the show, and yeah, look forward to speaking with you soon.
Good luck, Blake.
Thanks. You too, Clinton.